Hi everyone, Stacey Adelman here for today's edition of Tuesdays at 12. And what I wanted to talk with you about today was the topic of resilience. And I'm not sure how many people know this or not, but Joshua Tree is actually a symbol of resilience. And it's something that our group is really built on is how can we teach people how to be resilient. So the Joshua Tree is a symbol of resilience. And so I wanted today to really talk about the myths of resilience. It's become such a buzzword. And so I really wanted to talk a little bit more about it so we can better understand what resilience is. So the first main area, or the first myth, if you will, about resilience is that you either have it or you don't. It's something you're kind of born with or you don't have. And that just simply isn't true. What we do know about resilience now is it's something that can be learned. And I think in so many areas of mental health in general, or I speak also a lot about grief and loss, is we kind of get this idea that it's maybe something that we have to power through or something that we just kind of have, and we take for granted that we should just know how to do it. We should just know how to grieve or know how to get through life's challenges. And if we don't know how, then there's just kind of something wrong with us. What we know about resilience is that it is something that can, in fact, be taught. There are skills to learn in order to be resilient. And here at Joshua Tree, we really believe that we can teach those skills and help individuals in a variety of different areas learn the skills that they need in order to be resilient with whatever it is that they're going through in their lives. And so, just like one might learn skills to go fly a plane or learn the skills to sail a boat, we can learn skills in order to be more resilient in our life. So, it is not something that we just inherently know, albeit there might be some skills we've just kind of picked up, maybe from other people in our life or through our experiences. But generally, we can learn those skills and we can better develop our own resilience to increase our emotional well-being, our mental health, and help us reach our goals. So resilience is in fact something that can be learned. Um, the second myth that I really wanted to talk a bit about today is that there's just kind of like this one path to being resilient. Um, or just one way to be resilient. But what we do know, and the research is clearly showing, is that it's a very multidimensional kind of a trait. In fact, resilience is really, really hard to measure because there are so many different pathways to resilience. And I think what we have to understand is that resilience is maybe going to look very different to different people as people take different paths according to their values and their interests and their goals. And so it's something that we can really tailor individually to each person based on who they are and the particular challenge that they're facing. So resilience is a multidimensional trait. There are many different pathways to attain your resilience or grow your resilience, and there is not just one single pathway. The third point that I wanted to talk about, or the third myth rather, is that resilient people go it alone. You know, they just have this kind of mental toughness that they can get through things on their own. They don't need the support and that of other people. That is not true. That is actually a myth. And one of the strongest predictors of resilience is in fact connection. And those that maintain connections, build connections in their community, in their families, in their workplaces. The connection is an extremely strong predictor of resilience. So those that are resilient are constantly trying to make connections and build and strengthen the connections that they already have. So we're starting to learn a lot more about this and talk about it a lot more, actually, after after everything we experienced as a society through COVID, that was extremely isolating. We now know just how critical connection is. As human beings, we were wired to be connected. So resilience is not going it alone. Resilience is actually maintaining, building, and strengthening connections with other people. We need essentially to take care of one another. So here at Joshua Tree, for example, groups is a very important part of our therapeutic process because it builds on the connections, people helping one another, people coming together to foster and strengthen resilience in a multitude of different ways. We need to maintain those connections. Myth number 4 is that the focus of resilience is all about, managing negative emotions. And while that certainly might be part of building resilience and learning how to manage negative emotions, it's also about building stronger positive emotions. And how do we do that? And how do we create that for ourselves? How do we create that with other people? So we also need to surround ourselves and actually learn how to cope with positive emotions, especially if we've gone through a lot of negativity in our life. We also need to learn then, well, how do we deal with things that are feeling good and working well? And how do I create more of that in my life? The fifth and final myth that I want to talk about today is that resilient people will power through stress and illness. It's this idea of bouncing back, the idea that I can just tough it out and keep on grinding and keep on going, and that's what's going to make me resilient. And I think sometimes we can confuse resilience with some of the other buzzwords we often hear about, such as grit. And I think while there's an element of that's true, we do power through. Do we really ever bounce back? Right? I know if you look up a lot of definitions of resilience, you will see those words. It means bouncing back. I don't know. I like to think of it more in terms of a Joshua tree. If you look at the Joshua tree, if you see pictures of it down at Joshua Tree National Park, for example, they don't bounce back to life's adversity, but rather grow and adapt and change. And that's how the Joshua tree kind of has this unique kind of, different kind of a look from other trees, is it's constantly growing, changing, and adapting. But does it ever go back to the way it was? Right? When we go through something really difficult in life, perhaps through grief and loss, we don't go back to who we were before. That event has changed us, and we learn how to grow and change and adapt. So I don't see resilience as being that we, necessarily bounce back, but how do we grow forward? And how are we going to use this as a way to grow forward? And I think this is really important to talk about because so often when we talk about powering through it, that's also a recipe for burnout. And I think we need to be really cognizant of that a lot of times, and most times, taking care of ourselves is really important and is actually going to make us more resilient than if we were to, just power ourselves through something to the point where we actually burn ourselves out. So we need an adequate chance to recover. We need to recoup. We need to be supported. We need to take care of one another and not just power through life's difficulties. So those are the 5 key areas I wanted to talk about with resilience. I wanted to keep it just kind of short and sweet today. But here at Joshua Tree, we talk a lot about resilience. We're very solution focused in terms of how can we help you achieve those goals using your values and your interests, and take what's happened to you and help you become resilient through it. So that's all for today on Tuesdays at 12. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you again next week. Take care.